Hello there and welcome to a brand new lesson. This is Hub Beyond Numbers where we learn maths the easy way. This is the first lesson of this playlist and we are looking at angles and then the types of angles. In this lesson, here are the objectives we would want to achieve. Without much ado, let's quickly look into it. So since we want to talk about angle, what at all is an angle? We have here saying an angle is the measure of 10. Take note here, it is a measure of 10 between two lines that meet at a common point. So what does this mean? So let's say I have two lines. So as you can see here, this line, I would make it a red line. And then this other line will also be a blue line, or a white line is fine. Now we say is the measure of the 10 between the two lines that meet at a common point. So first of all, let's take note of these common points we are talking about. This here is the common point. So with these two lines meeting, realize that spaces are being formed. You see? So other definitions would say an angle is formed when two lines meet. So if you want to measure the space that is formed between the two lines, that is what we call an angle. It is the measure of an angle. The space here is what we call an angle. This space here is what we call an angle. This space as well is what we call an angle. With that understanding established, we have two main parts of an angle we need to consider. So first off, let me clean this so we just limit ourselves to this angle that has been formed here. So with this angle that has been formed, you realize that there are two lines forming the angles. You see? And before the angle is formed, we said they meet at a point. This very point is what we call the vertex of the angle. So the vertex you see here is actually this, the point where the two lines meet. You see? Then secondly, we have the arm. So the arm is the two straight lines, or they are the two straight lines that form the angle. So this red line is the arm of the angle, and this white line is also the arm of the angle. Now, talking about the theory like this, you might ask, where then do we see angles in real life? Let's look at some images that show angles being formed even in real life as well. So as we can see in these images, this is a wall, you see. So we have this side of the wall and this side of the wall as well. And we even have the floor. Now, the wall and then the floor form an angle because there are two lines that have actually met. So the vertical and the horizontal, you see. Now, another practical example is opening a door. So as you open a door, an angle is formed using the original frame of the door and then the door itself. You see, a space is created that you can pass through. That space that is created, or the thing through which you open the door, is an angle. For this example we have here, it's also a laptop. So we know when we close the angle, we see there is no space between the keyboard and then the lid. But then as we open it at a suitable angle so that we can do what? View the screen of the laptop. Then our final one here is the road. The flat surface is even an angle, as we will see in this lesson. With that, let's look at the last section of this lesson where we'll consider 6 types of angles. 6 types of angle. That is, we have special names we give to an angle that is formed depending on its measure. So on the table displayed on the screen, we have just a quick summary of the 6 types of angles we'll be considering. The first one is an acute angle. Now, before I explain this, I would like you to know that angles are measured with what? A protractor. That is the instrument we use to measure an angle. We would do that in our next lesson, but it is needed for you to understand what we have here. So the instrument we use to measure an angle is what? The protractor. And then the unit we measure angles in, we have the degrees and then the radians. But in the scope of this video, we'll be looking at just the degrees. So angles are measured with protractors in degrees. Now, to explain all these type of angles, I'll just quickly go through them, and then we would look at how to sketch them out. So we have an acute angle. We say an acute angle is between 0 and then 90 degrees. All right. Any angle whose measure, if you measure the angle in between 0 and 90, we call it an acute angle. If it is greater than, or if it is exactly 90 degrees, then it is a right angle, as you see here. We call it a right angle. If it is greater than 90 degrees, we call it an obtuse angle. And though it is greater than 90 degrees, it should be less than 180 degrees. Now, if it is exactly 180, then it's a straight line or a straight angle. Then, if we have it greater than 180, it is a reflect angle. Then if it is exactly 360, it becomes a full 10. These are types of angles you need to memorize them. Now, how do we sketch them? So first of all I'm going to do is to draw a circle. So this is my circle over here. And then I will need a straight line. So I'm going to draw my straight line this way. All right. So this is my straight line. We said angles are formed when two lines do what? They do meet. So what are we going to do? So with it zoom this way, I think I can draw the angles so that you actually see what we mean. This is my first line here, which will represent the arm of the angle. You see? So I have my first arm over here. Now, if the second arm is within the range of greater than 0, but then it doesn't touch 90, so that is anything like this. This would be 89. You see? Any angle within this range. So let's take it in multiples of 10s. We have an 80, 70, 60, 50, and then 40, 30, and even 20, and then 10 as well. All these angles we say are what? Acute angles. Why? Because their measure is what? Between 0 and then 90. See, even 89 itself is also an acute angle. But then if this line forms an angle with this straight line over here, then that becomes a right angle because its measure is 90 degrees. So it moves all the way from here to this way. You get it? Now, if the angle becomes greater than 90 degrees, then it no more becomes a right angle, but an obtuse angle. You see? So the likes of 100-degree, 110, 120. For now, I'm just considering the multiples of 10s. All the angles here are obtuse. See? But for simplicity's sake, let's just consider the multiples of 10. So all the angles here that are formed with this becomes what? An obtuse angle. You see that? Okay. Then the next one we said is when it is a straight line. So one might ask, an angle is actually formed when two lines meet. So where are the two lines that meet when we have a straight line? Now, as you can see, we have this first line over here. So this very first line, see? Then if I'm to draw another line in this direction, it becomes two lines meeting. I don't know if you can see it clearly. So I'm coming to deepen it. So we have this first line here. And if we are to get another line in this direction, it becomes two lines meeting, you see. So that is where we get the idea from, claiming that what a straight line is an angle. Why? Because it is two lines that are forming. Now we call that a straight line, and its measure is 100 and what? 80 degrees. So far, let's look at the measures we have considered. So the first one is an acute angle. An acute angle is within this range. So between 0 and 90. Then if we get to 90, we have our what? Right angle. Anything greater than the right angle but less than 180 becomes an obtuse angle. And then if you get your 180, you form a straight line. You see, there are more. Now, this very last one, or last but one, is what we call a reflect angle. So for a reflect angle, it spans all this region. What do I mean by that? If I have an angle whose measure is around something around here or here, so we know this is 180. So 180, then this becomes 190 and 120, 130, all these over here. You see, even to what we have here, which is 270, including all these ranges, they are all greater than what? They are all greater than 180. We call this type of angle a reflect angle. So if the two lines meet such that the angle between the two lines is greater than what? 180, then we say it is a reflect angle. In our subsequent lessons, we'll be looking at some relationship between these angles, because you realize that anytime an acute angle is formed, a reflect angle is also formed. They go hand in hand. And we'll look at some properties that links them. With that said, the last type of angle we'll be looking at is the 360, that is the complete turn. Now, we know the earth revolves around the sun. If it revolves throughout the year and comes back to a position where it started, we say it has undergone a 360-degree angle. You see, so that is our last type of angle. So now that we know all these types of angles, let's try solving some questions on them so that we see how we can apply the knowledge we have obtained. So our first question we'll be considering is what you see on the screen. It says if a clock shows 2 o'clock, what type of angle do the hands make? If a clock shows 2 o'clock, what type of angle do the hands make? So I'll quickly draw a clock that is showing 2 o'clock. So this is just a sketch of a clock, you see. And if we have 12 here, and then this is 1, and then this is the 2. Now we said an angle is formed when two lines meet. So the angle we are talking about here is the angle between the hour hand and then the minute hand. Now, what type of angle is it? Looking at it, it is very, very small, you see, and it is not like an L, and it is not more than an L. Hence, we call this angle an acute angle. So when it's 2 o'clock, then the type of angle that is formed is an acute angle. So simply put, an acute what? Angle. Our next question here says the corner of a standard sheet of paper is what type of angle? The corner of a standard sheet of paper. Now, if we take a standard sheet of paper, let's say an A4 sheet, something like this. This is what an A4 sheet looks like. We want to consider the corner. So the corner can be here, 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 or here, any of them. What angle do you think is formed over here? If you look at it carefully, it forms an L. And we said for right angle triangles, for right angles, they form what? An L. So if it is an L, then it simply means it forms a right angle. And that is all. It forms a right angle. So you see, in real life, there are so many angles that are formed. So just on this sheet of paper, we have realized that what? It is a right angle, all the corners. Let's take one last question. So let's consider our last question, which says, if you turn around completely to face the opposite direction, what angle have you moved? What angle have you moved? So I'm going to illustrate that with some lines so that it helps us get our solution. So let's say you are facing this direction and you now turn, so from this direction, you turn completely to face the opposite direction. This is the opposite direction. He said, what angle have you moved? If you look at it carefully, you would realize that a straight line has been formed. You see, a straight line. And what angle did we say makes a straight line? You can pause and let me know in the comment section. If you did so, well done. So a straight line is a straight line angle. That is just it. See, so you have moved an angle of 180 degrees. 180 degrees. So anytime you move facing the opposite direction, that is in parade, we say about 10. You have actually moved a 180 degrees. On that note, we are ending this lesson here. As usual, I'll leave some exercises so you try just to test your understanding. So these are just 5 questions you can see on your screen. You have to what? First of all, you have to classify. They're all classification questions. I do hope this lesson was helpful. This is how Beyond Numbers where we learn maths the easy way. If this was your first time on this channel and you do think it will be of help to you, you can choose to subscribe if you so do wish, so that anytime I release a video, you'll be notified as well, so you can also come and then learn along. See you in our next lesson, then bye for now.
That's right, you've reached the final frame. Let's celebrate this learning game. With every number, big or small, you learn to stand up straight and tall. The easy way, you found the key to solve the puzzle wild and free. So don't you ever be afraid of all the progress that you've made. Beyond Numbers. Yeah.